It's time to talk sports, it's time for the show. When you hear this song on the radio, it's time to tune in, better act fast. Let me get that Potograph, Sports Talk Radio. Starting now.
Let's go! What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 141 of Let Me Get That Potograph. Fresh back from the Mint Collective, as always. My name is Drew, or the DH, and joining me, my awesome co-host, Scott. What's up, man?
What's up, Drew? You sound like you are dragging, man.
Is it that obvious?
It is. Oh, man, it is. Is that what, like, 3-4 days in Vegas will do to you?
Apparently. I've never been before, so apparently.
Wait a minute. You've never been to Vegas before this?
I had driven through it. I had done a lot of shows and played concerts in, New Mexico, stuff like that. But driven past it, through it, all that. But no. Never. Oh man! Never ever got to experience Vegas until this weekend. So that
explains why you're dragging.
Yeah.
Obviously you were at the Mint all during the day and early evenings and things like that, and then you had to go out and explore and do the Vegas stuff at night. And that's the cool thing about Vegas is it really is a 24-hour place, especially if you just hang out on the Strip. So you could go days and days without sleep and things done, but you're dead at the end.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially one thing I did learn is if they have it again next year, which I will absolutely attend if they have it next year, but no more red eyes back on Sunday night. We're flying out Monday and staying Sunday.
I learned that a long time ago, and it has nothing to do with Vegas. It's just red eyes in general. The only time I will ever take a red eye is if I'm coming from Hawaii, and because I don't have a choice.
Right.
But aside from that, if I got a choice, I will skip the red eye at all costs.
Oh, same here. That was the rough one. But yeah, welcome everybody. Like I said, back from the Mint. We will have up the special episode that we did from the Collectible Studio. We'll have that posted this week, both in audio and visual format as well. Had a lot of fun there doing that show. But man, the Mint was something else, dude. I'll tell you that. It was the coolest non-card show I've ever been to. It was much a trade show with some vendors set up as well, obviously with cards, but it was not your normal type of card show. It was a completely different type of feel, but in a good way. Like if you're someone like myself who obviously, we talk to a lot of people in this hobby, a lot of the people in different companies. I mean, that's our job. So for someone like myself or anyone in that position, this is the absolute best place in the world. I mean, Friday night, the preview show, literally was just wall to wall people that you didn't even know that collected that were coming in and really interested in this hobby. I mean, we might have Zach from Ghost Adventures on the show here in a couple weeks. Like there was
That'd be cool.
I met him. He's a huge basketball collector and he knew of the show and everything. Like he's big into the hobby. Like there were so many people that were there that I didn't think would be there that were very interested in this hobby, but it was an interesting show.
And I'm curious if the Major League Baseball lockout had still been going on, how many? Because we know there's a lot of baseball players that collect.
Yeah.
Benny Montgomery's at it again. Speaking of that, but we
were set up right next to Paul LaDuca.
There you go. So the question is, how many guys in the Major League roster, the 40-man roster, who were affected by the lockout would have come to Mint, one, because it's a weekend in Vegas.
Yep. And
two, because it's the coolest non-card show out there.
Yeah.
How many of those guys would have shown up?
I think you would have seen quite a bit. People like Bobby Witt. That's why I just said quite a wit.
We'll talk about him. We'll talk about him later.
Yeah, big collector. I think he's someone that probably would have shown up. I think a lot of people would. You saw a lot of surprise appearances from a lot of people. Not even appearances, but they just showed up. I mean, in Vegas. I guess it's.
Well, who'd you see?
Kayvon Thibodeau or whatever from LSU, top 5 draft pick coming up in the NFL. He was there.
And why was he there?
He had a deal with eBay, I guess.
No, that's not why he was there.
Wow.
He was there because LSU went out.
Oh yeah,
first weekend.
Yeah,
that's why he was there. If they were still playing in the Sweet 16 of the Elite Eight, he would not have made an appearance at that show.
Well,
but the only reason he was there,
they lost because I got a really sweet auto card of him and Sophia Chang because of it. Yeah, Sophia Chang made a custom eBay card for the eBay booth of Kayvon. And he and her were both signing at the same session, and you were able to get the card for free, and then get in the line and have both of them sign it. So I had him on the front and her on the back. Yeah, it's sweet. I mean, it's awesome. And
so what you're saying is he hit it from the back.
Yeah, absolutely. But
I'm sorry, Sophia. I couldn't help myself.
I love you, Sophia. You're awesome. I did tee him up. You had to take the shot. So
I wouldn't be doing it justice if I let that one go.
Exactly. But no, I mean, it was amazing. But like you saw everything this weekend from, like I said, Thursday night, much more of a industry execs and leaders and things like that, much more of a quiet type of show as it was the preview and everything.
Yeah.
When you got to Saturday and Sunday, my God, I mean, I thought that getting the feel of the setup and the layout and as I said, much more of a trade show feel as opposed to a card show. Now, there were hundreds of vendors with tons of cards and great deals. I ended up grabbing a bunch of stuff. So I'm not saying there weren't a lot of cards there, but it's not one of those 20 rows of dollar boxes and things like that. You know what I mean? It was
it's more of the higher end,
right,
type stuff.
But the biggest shocker to me was the amount of kids that attended the Mint. And I'm talking, and I talked to probably 10 or 12 kids that were not any of them older the age of 13.
Okay,
probably have a nicer collection than me right now.
Well, how many of them lived in Vegas?
Probably 3 or 4. Most traveled quite a bit.
Okay, because that's one. And how many of them came in because of their, because their parents were set up there, or something along those lines, as opposed to, because I know a lot of the vendors that went brought their families because their families had a ton to do in Vegas during the day, and they can hang out by the pool, they can hang out, walk around the strip, they can go to the Hoover Dam.
I'd say it was probably about even because, I met, we were obviously set up at the Gem Mint booth all weekend. So we were taking in PSA orders and a lot of kids were coming up there to sub their cards.
Yep.
And you could tell that some of them, were probably part of vendors, but there was a ton of kids who their parents just brought them up and the parents knew nothing about the cards, but the kids are more educated than half the people I see on Facebook and they're 10. It was mind blowing to see the wheeling and dealing that, like, I saw a couple kids in particular that were from Minnesota, I believe. I wish I remembered your name, little man. You were awesome. But Whatnot had like a claw machine and he was trying to win a blaster. So I do those claw machines for Jude all the time. So I walked up, one try, boom, got the blaster for him, gave it to him and talked to him for a little bit. And then he came over to sub some cards. Kid's got like a $20,000 some collection or so.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, at 10 years old. And
so
I asked his mom. I asked his mom.
Well, now you're like, why on earth would I help this kid with the claw machine? I wouldn't have done it had I known that was his collection.
Exactly.
Like the kid doesn't need a blaster box. The kid,
No, but it was just impressive to see a lot of the kids that were there. There was 10 times more kids there than I thought it was going to be, especially after I saw the layout of everything. But it was such if you're someone that is in the hobby from a business aspect of it, like, and you can be in it for both. There's nothing wrong with being in business and still liking to collect. But if you're in the business at all, if you're content creating, anything along those lines, this, in my opinion, this is the show to go to. It's completely different than the National. It is 1000% the opposite of the National,
which is good because the National kind of stands by itself, and this being so different, it gives you another reason to go. You go to the National, you go to the Mints, and and back and forth. And I'm glad it did kind of have that trade show feel too, because my experience, with shows and stuff like that in Vegas is, 10 plus years going to the Consumer Electronics Show, which is very much a trade show. And, coming home with a suitcase full of swag from the different vendors that are out there, trying to get me to buy their crap. And, meetings all day and, the occasional, winding up in a hotel suite at Planet Hollywood drinking Hennessy with Mitch Richmond and Robert Horry, which is a whole nother story. But Vegas is very much that trade show vibe.
Yeah.
And I think they need to plan it better because, Consumer Electronics Show is usually, it used to be the same weekend, same week as the porn awards.
Yeah.
Their big video award convention. And it used to be awesome because, you got 150,000 of, these dorky individuals coming from around the world. And then you've got this whole group of like strippers and porn stars and stuff walking around, Vegas, and you could tell who's there for what show.
Yeah.
Based on, how the porn stars dress and how the, how they're getting stared at by all the people that, come in from other parts of the world or other parts of the country for the Consumer Electronics Show. Yeah. So I think the Mint needs to move to the same weekend as the AVN Awards, which is, what they call that. And I think it would make for a killer show. I wouldn't, do a break around it.
No.
Blez. But I would definitely encourage it because it makes for some interesting people watching.
Yeah, speaking on that, and then I want to get back to the Mint for just a second, but speaking on that whole Blez break and everything, I look, guys, I work with a lot of women. I do shows with a couple women in the hobby. Miss Layton is a good friend of mine, and she does probably more for women in the hobby than anybody, possibly outside of Sam, who I do a show with on Hobby Hotline, and Suze as well. I know a lot of these people tremendously, but it was pretty ironic. I don't want to say funny, but it was interesting to me, the massive outrage over that break. But then if you walked into the Mint, so many companies had women in much tighter outfits.
Even at the National.
Yeah, yes, every year.
The Panini girls that are always there, the Fanatics always have, have their people there. And they're much tighter, much less.
Yeah.
And it was really and I understand. Look, it's never been done in a break before.
Right.
And I mean, look, we all know that, Blez Brothers are just backyard breaks with deeper pockets.
Yes.
And, they wanted to do something that, instead of just having a bunch of boxes sitting around. And I understand, look, the connection, it was very much to me like the ring girls at a UFC fight or a boxing match, where they're holding up the round cards.
I think they were trying to give it that Vegas feel, but they left out like the bright light, throw a little pretend slot machine behind it. I think if they put that, like, if the background made you think of Las Vegas,
they could have got a real slot machine. It's Vegas, man.
Yeah. But if you had made that background look like a Vegas feel as opposed to just a desk with a bunch of cardboard boxes on it, I don't think anyone complained.
Or some, or again, instead of the girls they had, maybe get some showgirls. Their costumes, all the feathers and all that kind of stuff. I mean, look, that's very much Vegas. You see it walking around,
you can't
on the strip.
See it.
Exactly.
Not any hotel, anywhere you go, it doesn't matter. You can't help see it. There's a photo shoot going on at every place outside. Yep. I mean, it's everywhere. So I thought that was an interesting start to the weekend, and then I thought it was interesting how, as soon as the show started, and obviously that break being the night before everyone got there, that was the big buzz when the show started. Then everyone walked around the booth and you never heard from it again. Because every booth had it. Exactly.
I have not heard about that all weekend. And I honestly, I think the big reason we didn't really hear anything about it is because nothing huge really came out of those 25 cases.
No, nothing huge did, which is that's rough. It shows.
I mean, what was the best card? Was the Luca 3 out of 3 auto?
The bonus boxes, honestly, that David Adams gave him, the Panini 1-on-1s, those ended up with better hits than most of the big cases.
I know. I mean, I would have felt bad if I had been one of the guys to buy just an individual any one of those 25 cases. They were all screwed.
Oh, I know one person got into 5 spots himself. So that man,
I feel
slammed.
I don't feel for that person at all.
Me neither.
Because if you had the money to buy into 5 spots for that, that's
you knew what you were doing. You were gambling that no matter what. If you were in Vegas, it would have been on a slot machine had it not been on that.
No, I wouldn't say a slot machine. I think it would have gone on an NCAA game, or it would have gone on the baccarat table, because that there's some insane bet. For some reason, I don't know why. The Asian guys love baccarat,
right?
And I've been in some casinos, in Vegas, where I'm watching guys put down $100,000, minimum a hand on baccarat, and I don't get the game.
Well, I will say, I don't either. I will say one thing that was pretty crazy at the Mint when the F1 race was going on. This was one of the craziest takeaways for me. The show almost about half of the show completely stopped, walked over to the big screen in front of the collectible booth, and did not take their eyes off of that race till it was over.
Interesting.
And that was something that was, it really caught, because I was doing, it was Sunday and we were doing our show at the collectible booth, and and I'm sitting there with Corey and Tim from Slab Strong and Show Your Slabs, and we're doing our show, and all these people were starting to gather around us. We thought they were watching us, and then we looked up the big screen and realized what they were really watching.
They're watching the F1 race. Now the cool thing about F1 is it's timed. They have a very strict time limit. You either finish the laps before, I think it's like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it's not going to go any longer than 2 hours. And I think that, just the fact that they have to move so much equipment around and the amount of money that's spent on that sport for 2 hours.
Yeah.
As opposed to, a NASCAR race, you get the Cup Series race that can go for 4, sometimes 5, depending on, how many cautions and all that kind of stuff. But, the fans really get their money's worth.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They
from a time perspective. But F1, but no, that's not a shock.
It was interesting to me. It was one of the only times that I found that the show stopped a little bit was during that period. But the biggest takeaway I had is, I don't want to spend too much time on this, as guys will have a lot of video content and stuff for you up this week and tons of live footage while I was there. But the biggest takeaway that I had, and I kind of mentioned this to you before we went on the air, was I spent a lot of time walking around and actually spoke to every single vendor that was there, because we had a vendor discount going on. So I spoke to every single vendor there and got into some detailed conversations with quite a bit of them. The most interesting thing that I found was these companies that are coming out in the last couple of years: Show Your Slab, Slab Strong, from Whatnot to Loop to Drip, this new company, all of these different companies. And I'm just using those as a couple of examples. They're obviously making tons of money right now and are doing wonderful, but it's not putting it in and pulling it out and running. They are reinvesting into the hobby. They are reinvesting into their business, other smaller businesses. The amount of collaboration that I saw at this show, the amount of meetings that people were having, and just the sheer and genuine interest that some very large companies had in a lot smaller companies and a lot of other parts of the hobby gave me so much hope for the future. Like, honestly, this show gave me more than any card show could show me, because yes, you see, honestly, I'm not worried about people coming. People are going to be coming to this hobby, and more people are going to be coming to this hobby. I think I was more concerned about the structure, how everything was going to work out. Are companies going to try and alienate themselves? Are they going to be cash grabs and dip out? I saw more collaboration, like I said, and just more interest and more of putting money back into the hobby to help grow their business, but also the hobby itself was an incredibly positive sign for me.
And that was part of the aspect of it that was non-card show type.
Yeah.
It was more like an industry convention.
Yes.
From that aspect of it, where you've got a lot of the behind the scenes dealing coming out, and I'm willing to bet we're probably going to see in the next couple of weeks, some major announcements come out about things that happened during meetings during Mint.
That's an understatement. You're going to see the news will not stop. Trust me. Leading up to the National, by the time the National's around, dude, the landscape's going to be very different in this industry.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it is going to come from meetings that happened at
Absolutely.
And that's, which is great for us because it's going to keep us busy for the foreseeable future. And we'll have some, fun things to talk about, including, and I don't think this came from the Mint, but, something we'll be talking about a little bit later in the show that is something announcement wise that came out today or Tuesday per se, because, the show releases on Wednesday. So I think I'm curious to see what they're going to do next year to kind of top it.
Me too. And I'm interested to see if it, like I said, I will definitely go. From everyone I've talked to, next year is probably going to be a go. I don't see them stopping. Also,
I think this year was a little different because, and maybe this year was even smaller than it could have been had they been able to keep the original date at the end of January.
No, 100%.
I would have been there for that one.
Yep.
But this weekend I couldn't make it work.
Exactly. And that was for a lot of people. And also this was at the time, when a lot of people booked flights, had them canceled. They were non-refundable, things like that. A lot of people that I knew were just like, I'm not going through all of it again. So no, the pushback definitely probably had an effect. And I was a little worried that it was going to have a major effect, but the amount of people that came in from out of town was incredible. The amount of locals that came in was impressive. There's a strong
collector base in Vegas.
There is a lot of people from Cali driving over, taking the 6-hour trip to do some drop-offs and stuff. We had things like that. It was a very, very big show compared to what I thought it was going to be, and it exceeded all of my expectations. I don't want to spend too much more time on it. Obviously, we got some awesome stuff to talk about, but it was a wonderful show, and just wait for the awesome announcements that are coming, because there's a lot of stuff that you're going to be seeing in a couple of weeks that'll shake up the hobby, but shake it up in a good way.
Yeah, sounds like something to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll move on from the Mint. We'll bitch slap it out of the way like Will Smith did Chris Rock, and we'll get right into the interesting news that popped out in the grading world, my man.
This one surprised me. I didn't think this was coming because, again, we've got, obviously we're talking about CSG not only changing their labels, but also changing their grading scale.
Yeah, the label design they had announced. The grading scale change, I had no clue about.
Yeah. Now, I will say I am happy that they changed the label because man, I'm going to be honest with you, I think most people would agree that label that they had was absolutely atrocious.
And it sucks because they have the most beautiful crystal clear slabs to put that nasty label in.
That was the thing. I don't know who it was that came up with that label in the first place and said, hey, we have the best, clearest slabs in the industry.
Let's throw this on it.
let's put this god ugly thing that looks like, my third grader designed it in the basement, in there to show the grades. So I'm glad they made the change.
I like the change.
I like it.
Nice.
I do. I like it. The biggest shock is that they changed the grading scale.
Yes.
Now, they didn't change it. It's funny because, looking at it, obviously their gem mint is now a 10.
Right.
But if you look at the grading scale that they put out there, it's not a mirror of PSA.
Yeah.
When I heard that, okay, their gem mint is now going to be a 10, I thought for sure, hey, all right, they're going the PSA route.
Right.
Because they're the largest, grading company out there, most popular, value wise. They didn't do that.
Nope.
You know who they mirrored?
SGC.
They mirrored SGC. And that was, I'm somewhat surprised, that they went that route. And I understand why, because if you look at the actual grading scale, the SGC scale is probably my favorite that's out there, with the exception of BGS adding in that black label.
Right.
The one step above pristine, which is like, it's like an 11. But aside from that, they've got the, gem mint is a 10, but they do have they have a 10 grade above that. And CSG is calling it a perfect 10. Yep. And I like the choice of words.
Me too.
On that. Too. But here's the biggest thing, but that's not a big deal. Because again, you got gem mint, and you got, perfect, pristine, whatever you want to call it. I think the biggest shocker is that they added the Mint Plus 9.5 grade.
Yeah.
And everybody, for the longest time, when SGC changed their scale a couple of years ago, they threw in that 9.5 that was in there and called it Mint Plus. Nobody knew what to do with it.
Right.
If you would have taken the majority of those Mint Plus cards before, PSA started getting a little stricter, most of those cards would have been PSA 10s.
Absolutely.
And a lot of those cards with subgrades attached to it would probably qualify as like Min Gem with Beckett.
Right.
But because, SGC's always been strict, and CSG, from what I've seen, has been, fairly strict on their grading too. Having that Mint Plus grade in there, now we have two companies that have it. So the question is PSA going to add at some point,
right,
seeing that it seems to be a trend, and that would actually give them some flexibility, because I know like that's been their big thing, is not giving every card a 10. Even, we all joke about, population control and undergrading intentionally and things like that. This would give them a way to, to kind of be a little bit more flexible. Yeah. And you don't have, you're not giving a 9 to a card that really should get a 10.
Right.
But it's, it's borderline.
Yeah.
Beckett has nowhere to go with their current grading scale to add in a Mint Plus grade in between their 9 and their 9.5 gem.
Well, I'm going to be quite honest. If we're talking about Beckett, kind of circling back down around to the Mint again, they've got a lot of work to do. Grading and their scale aside, that company has quite a bit of work to do at the moment.
Well, here's what I can say about that. Look, Jeremy Murray has been a friend of mine for a long time.
Sure.
He basically was just put in charge last year. The problem is the company's not really controlled from here.
Exactly.
The company is controlled by a bunch of bookkeepers sitting overseas, and the guy who owns the majority of it is not in control because he's sitting in federal prison.
Yeah.
So it's a situation where Jeremy's hands are really tied in a lot of stuff. He's doing the best that he can with what he was given.
Well, I'm going to go on and break some news here. I don't know if it's been known completely, and I really don't know if I'm supposed to talk about it, but I don't really care. Beckett just actually was sold to new management. So
thank God.
Yes, are a completely new management team than it was
before.
Right. I can confirm that. I have 1,000% total control that the man in charge is still behind bars, but people running it from the outside have been changed over at Beckett. So
that's a good sign. I was not aware of that.
I wasn't until this weekend.
And who knows? You weren't told not to say anything.
Exactly.
So if nobody told you not to say anything, then what are you
not attaching names to it? But I'll tell you, it 1,000% is under new control. So I'd like to see where it goes from there. But running back to CSG, the most interesting thing to me about these new labels, and I want to get your thoughts on this as well, is the elimination of subgrades. But do you think they eliminated those subgrades because of everything that they've got going on right now? They just announced that deal with eBay. So they're authenticating every damn eBay card that comes through their offices. They're doing so much stuff right now. Do you think, I honestly think that might have put in a reason that they got rid of subgrades.
Well, keep in mind, they're only authenticating the $500+ cards.
Yes, but
we all know which is, and look, and there's still a lot of them that get sold on a daily basis, but the majority of the cards that get sold on eBay are sub 500.
Yeah.
Does it add a little bit of extra work? Yes. But here's the other thing. They're not grading those cards. They're authenticating them.
Right.
And it is a lot easier to authenticate a card than it is to grade it.
Of course.
It is a lot easier to train somebody to authenticate a card than it is to train somebody to grade it. Now, here's the reason why I think they eliminated subgrades. When they launched, they very quickly got into a massive backlog situation. And if you notice, you remember, like Beckett's had a massive backlog situation on their bulk, stuff for years, like going back long before the pandemic, long before PSA had a massive backlog. And what's the first thing that they did? They got rid of subgrades on bulk, with the exception of if it's a 10. And the reasoning for that is it takes a lot more time to grade the card when you're putting a grade on each individual subgrade. And CSG, even though they were charging for it, I think it was an extra $10 for subs, that slowed them down by a significant amount. But then they also took a look at it and whose graded cards are selling, have the highest resale value right now.
Yeah.
It's PSA.
Yeah.
Has PSA ever had subgrades?
No.
So, you have all these people clamoring for PSA cards, but none of them have ever had a subgrade attached to them.
Right.
So what does that tell you? Does it tell you that the subgrade, I mean, are the subgrades truly that important? Now, if you're talking about a monster card, like let's say you're talking about, 86 Fleer Jordan rookie.
Yeah.
Subgrades do make the difference. It could have two cards could both be overall 9/5s.
Yeah.
One's got 2 10s and 2 9/5s as subgrades. The other one is, min gem, 3 9/5s and a 9. Or even crazier, what you see sometimes 3 10s and an 8/5.
Yeah.
The dirty gem. So in a situation like that, it's very few cards where, the subgrades really make that big of a difference. But the reality is, if you have a PSA 10, Jordan rookie, it's going to sell for the same as most other PSA 10 Jordan rookies, unless it's something that's like so obvious that they completely blew the grade on it. I think they dropped it because they realized that the subgrades are not critical.
Yeah.
They're nice to have. They're absolutely nice to have.
I agree. And with this new label, honestly, subgrades would clutter the hell out of it. So I like that they're not, because even they showed off the example with the Bowman Brady for CSG. That's a very simple and very small title, and it still filled up a lot of that label. It fills up a solid amount just putting in that little bit when you put in the authentication number, all that other stuff in it. So, I think it had a little to do with aesthetics as well. But overall, I liked it. I thought it was smart to roll it out over the weekend. It was a big discussion all weekend long at their booth. It brought a ton of attention to their booth. Smart marketing.
I don't think it's going to change. I don't think it's going to change, resale value on on any of the new ones. But it's definitely a step in the right direction for them.
Yeah, and for anybody out there that does have one of the old flips, just a heads up, if you do have a 9.5 in an old CSG holder and you would like that 10, you do have the option of being able to send it in and getting that new label, and it will be bumped up to a 10. Probably not a perfect 10.
Sort of, not the perfect 10.
Not the perfect 10. It'll be your Gem Mint.
It'll go from the Gem Mint 9.5 to the new Gem Mint 10.
Yeah,
it's still the same grade,
right?
It's just psychologically, you've got now the feeling of having a 10 instead of a 9.5.
So if you want to flip them, you do have that option as well. But,
and there is a cost to it.
Yes,
it is relatively minimal. I think I saw somebody had it at like $5 or something like that to do it, but there's still that cost to it.
Yeah.
You gotta worry about that. It's not like they're doing it. They're not doing it for free out of the goodness of their heart. They still have a business to run. They have the cost of labor to be able to crack it, recreate the label, the new slab, and all that kind of stuff. So, it's not an exorbitant fee.
No,
but there is a fee to it. So just be aware of that.
And welcome back, everybody, to episode 141 of Let Me Get That Potograph. All right, so we're going to move on now, guys, to the segment that has taken the nation by storm. It wasn't here last week, but it's back today. That, of course, is Movers and Shakers.
And, Drew, I told you we'd be talking about Bobby Witt Jr. again later in the show.
I had a feeling.
We are going to start that off with Movers and Shakers today, because my Mover and Shaker this week is the guy who is probably going to make the Major League roster for the Kansas City Royals this week, and that is Bobby Witt Jr. himself. He's, putting up solid numbers in spring training. He's showing that he deserves to be there.
Showing some improved power too, man. Some of these
power he had. I thought, what we saw from him last year was solid. I
did
too.
I've just seen a couple dingers this year that were like, whoa, like over scoreboard dingers. I'm like, okay, bud.
And he's not a huge guy either.
That's my point.
He's not that. I'm trying to think who a good comparison to as far as power goes, but it's not. It's very clear that he has not been on any performance enhancing drugs. Is really what it comes down to. I thought he was going to make it after spring training last year with the way that he played, and another year of development for him at AAA, and I think he's ready to go. I think he is definitely going to wind up being on there. And as soon as they make that announcement, his stuff is going to go nuts. I think we're going to see, this is my prediction, like as crazy as Wander Franco's stuff got last year when he got called up.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see even crazier out of Bobby Witt Jr. He's not as hyped as Wander Franco was. And then Franco obviously had that, if you were a buyer, you had the benefit of his little slump there after, first couple of games, but then, 41 game on base streak, kind of brought things back to where they should have been. But I think we're going to see I think we're going to see even bigger things out of Bobby Witt Jr. and the card market surrounding him the minute that it's announced that he's going to make that roster.
I love that pick. I'm very high on Bobby Witt Jr. I think he is. I've always been a fan of his. I've got a lot of his stuff saved up. I've always kind of thought his market was a little below where it needed to be, but it also had a lot to do with who he came out with. Like, he was in that crop where you had 2 or 3 years where it was just absurdity of youth transcending into the game. So it was easy to kind of get, I don't want to say lost in the shuffle, because he was never lost. He was always, somewhere propped up there. But as someone who had quite a bit of his stuff, I was able to get it for ridiculously cheap.
Yeah, and I was buying some of his stuff when 2020 Bowman first came out, because everybody was chasing Jason Dominguez.
Yeah,
and you had Witt, who, like, okay, this guy's he's gonna make it there quicker than Dominguez is. He's got the goods. He knows what he's doing. But you were also coming off of a very, very strong 2019 class. Yeah. You had Wander Franco in there. You had, Julio Rodriguez, Marco Luciano, Joey Bart, was in there and was strong for a little while. And now that Buster Posey's retired, I think, his stuff might start coming back up again too. But, Witt he's been selling strong the last couple of years, but he did get lost in that shuffle a little bit. But he's going to be, well, with the exception of Joey Bart, he's going to be the first of those guys, well, and Wander Franco too. But, he'll be the first of that kind of like secondary group to make it up. And I think he's going to do really well. I still don't think Kansas City's going to, make the playoffs, but I think, you'll see a strong showing out of Witt. Yeah. And I think it's going to do wonders for his stuff.
Great pick. I was wondering who it was when you said it last week, so I was not thinking baseball. So nice little swerve there. I
know. I was originally going to go with Will Smith, but then he went and beat the crap out of Chris Rock over the weekend, and I had to bench that one. So it's like, what am I going to do?
You can't mess with Chris Rock. I watched him in Saw. So, I mean, you care whatever. Spiral. You can't mess with Chris Rock anymore, man. He's been through some shit. One little slap don't mean nothing to him.
Hey, man, I watched him. I watched him in both New Jack City and I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. And after what he went through in those two movies, I mean, dude couldn't even order a rib.
Right. But no, absolutely love the pick. Think it's great. So, all right. So for my mover and shaker this week, I am going to go over into soccer with the World Cup coming up very soon. Men's national team for U.S. looking like they're going to qualify with no issues. Knock on wood.
Did you happen to see the game the other night?
Yes, I did. I did.
Okay. And is your choice who I think it's going to be?
No.
From that particular. Okay, good. So, dude, I'm gonna tell you, man. Pulisic looked like a monster.
He did.
Dude, and I didn't realize the dude's only 5'8".
Yeah. Oh no, he's short.
Oh yeah, and he's like going up. I mean, I thought he was ready to go out and clock the guy from Panama after he threw a soccer ball at him. But
no, not going with Pulisic. I feel that would be a little too obvious. Plus, I think his cards right now, the hype on him is through the roof already. But there is a 19-year-old kid on this team who through 9 matches so far already has 3 goals in a limited role right now, but is someone that I think you're going to see a massive uptick from, and that is 19-year-old Ricardo Pepi. He is absolutely incredible. He's a striker, so he's not on defense, anything like that. He is a striker, so going to get a lot of attention, going to get a lot of scoring chances. He played in MLS last year, so did not get a ton of attention outside of the people that were smart enough to buy those MLS boxes before.
He was with Dallas, right?
Yes, FC Dallas. And now he is with Bundesliga club FC Augsburg next year. So he's moved up to, he's moved out of the MLS up into the Euro leagues and things like that. And now on the U.S. national team, 19 years old. I mean, he's 6'1". He's a big dude.
Yeah. 6'1's not big, dude.
No, but for soccer it can be.
But I mean, I think his problem is he's playing with Augsburg.
He's one of those guys that's 19 years old. So he's moving from the MLS. He had 1 season in MLS. Now he's right over there. He'll play for that team for a year or two, and then he'll move on. But I think you're going to see – I really think you're going to see in this World Cup a lot of attention put on him through the American side of things. And right now he has very little stuff out. He's got his MLS stuff. He's got the MLS Sapphire, and that's it.
Like, does he have a Tops Now out there?
Okay, yeah, he has Tops Now as well. But in terms of mass produced products and stuff
Nah,
like that.
there's nothing.
He doesn't have it for any of that. So Ricardo Pepi, 19 years old, about to play in a World Cup and about to get significant minutes in this World Cup. On a U.S. team that's incredibly strong with Timothy Way, everybody else on that team, I absolutely love Ricardo Pepi.
Now he should be in Topps Chrome Bundesliga when that comes out.
Yes, he should.
And I think they do a Bundesliga match attack as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he should be in that too. We'll see his stuff a little bit later in the season. But for now, and then, the nice thing, World Cup's not till November.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of time in between now and then, for Topps and Panini, depending on, I don't think Offspring's part of the Champions League.
Yeah.
But actually that's Topps too. That's not Panini. Panini does have the World Cup, the World Cup cards.
Yeah.
So he may be in a USA uniform as part of like the World Cup, like Donruss soccer that's out is World Cup.
Yeah.
So I have to go through. I don't think I saw him.
He wasn't on it, and that's why I just think he has I think he has a great ceiling, and I'm looking forward to see what we get out of him in terms of from the World Cup. But I would keep an eye out on Pepi while he still has very few products out. Perfect time to snag up some of those. And the Topps Chrome, thank God, use the alternate design for MLS. So it's not the it's not the design I hate. It's the one I love. So the cards actually look beautiful too.
And I love this past year's MLS Chrome. They also had the 1975 baseball design as an insert set for that as well, which I love those. I thought that was amazing.
Same here. So yeah, that's my mover and shaker for this week.
Definitely a good choice. As soon as you went soccer, I thought you might have been going Pulisic because he was definitely moving and shaking the other night.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of guys on that team that I think are get some spotlight time during the World Cup once it eventually hits.
Yeah.
And they'll start to pick up. So keep an eye on those Team USA guys.
All right. Well, guys, before we wrap up today's show, we got one more topic that we're going to cover. And this is a really interesting one. And Scott, I don't even know if all the information's out for us to fully understand exactly what's going on here. Okay. So Fanatics just recently announced that they now have the license again for WWE. Yet Panini, just a couple months ago, October, got the rights for WWE. WWE Prism is scheduled to come out very soon. You can pre-order boxes now. But now Fanatics has apparently already stolen back the WWE license from Panini.
Well, I'm not entirely sure if stealing back is the right term. So when we first heard about this, I went back and took a look at the press release that Panini put out, and now announcing in the fall, and the date October 26th, 2021 was the date, and they announced a multi-year deal beginning with the release of Prism WWE in the first quarter of 2022.
Yeah.
Now I think there's some delays. First quarter ends, Thursday, but WrestleMania is this weekend. And it's close enough, even though it's technically second quarter. Nowhere in the press release does it say anything about exclusive agreements. It just says a multi-year agreement. Hold on. I missed it. It did announce a multi-year agreement to make Panini WWE's exclusive trading card and collectible sticker partner. So it did say exclusive. I must have missed that the first couple of times I went through it, for that. But then today, according to the press release, WWE and Fanatics today announced a comprehensive long-term sports and entertainment partnership that will see Fanatics utilize its expanded digital sports platform to create a new enhanced experience for WWE fans globally across several businesses, including e-commerce and licensed merchandise, as well as physical, digital, and NFT trading cards.
Yeah.
So I guess the, Panini license wasn't as exclusive as they thought.
Yeah.
Or did they just use the word exclusive because they took the deal away from Topps at the time? And because that left Panini as the only, trading card company, license that was there for WWE? Or is it something where we're going to see a lawsuit?
Right.
We don't know. It makes sense to have a deal with Fanatics because they are going to be talking about e-commerce and licensed merchandise with T-shirts, hats, all the
Yeah, they're taking over the WWE store. The WWE store will no longer be on the WWE.com network. They've already announced
that's easy to do because Fanatics already runs the online stores for Major League Baseball, National Football League, and NBA, NHL, and a whole bunch of other other leagues too. A lot of college, all of it is on NCAA stuff. It's all on Fanatics' platform, and that's fine. It's perfect because they already have the logistical infrastructure to be able to support it. Now, the trading card aspect of it, and they could have done just that piece without including the cards, and it would have had no effect whatsoever on Panini.
Yeah.
Now we have a situation though, because they're including, and even if they had done digital.
Yeah.
If they had done digital and NFT cards, that wouldn't have had an effect on Panini because Panini didn't mention anything about digital or NFT. They only said trading card and collectible sticker, which, let's be honest, the stickers is what Panini does. That was their initial product. That's their core product throughout, the world.
Yeah.
And they do a good job with it. But we're also talking about physical, which means actual cards you can hold in your hand, and that competes directly against the agreement that is, that Panini put in place. So we have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
This is one of those things because everything is so ambiguous as to the releases that have come out. And I don't know what, the impact is going to be.
I know.
Whether or not it, does it violate agreements? And honestly, I can't see Vince McMahon getting into a contract and then violating the contract. I just can't see him doing it. He's not an idiot. He is the guy's a master businessman and marketer. He knows what he's doing. And he's probably, and I'm sure he's got a team of high-powered attorneys sitting behind him too, saying, all right, we can do this or we can't do this. There's been so there's no mention from Panini as to what's going on, no mention from Fanatics or, the Topps brand or WWE aside from, this press release that just came out. And this could lead to, obviously it will lead to the return of, Topps branded WWE cards, but will it lead to a massive lawsuit?
Yeah. No, I know. I don't know. It's really weird. The vagueness in some of these press releases and exactly all the details. I really don't understand exactly where this is going to go. And one interesting thing is I have not been able to find when the Fanatics deal kicks in. I don't know if that's been actually published. The date that it actually kicks in outside of just a long-term partnership. And so I really don't know where it's going. It makes the most sense, like you said, for the WWE.
Now, hold on. So here we go.
You got it?
Further down. Yeah. So so Fanatics Collectibles, this is way down like the second to last paragraph in the press release. So Fanatics Collectibles company's trading card and collectibles division will also become the exclusive provider of licensed WWE physical and digital trading cards, which once again bear the nostalgic Topps logo. Fanatics acquired the legendary 7-year-old Topps brand earlier this year, which previously held a long-term relationship with WWE. That deal will commence when WWE's existing trading cards rights expire over the next few years. Okay. So we've got a while, but we saw WWE leave Topps and go to Panini.
Yeah.
And now what we're seeing, this makes a ton of sense because Fanatics has basically purchased the future rights to all the other leagues, except the NHL. And they're willing to wait it out to be able to, to get those licenses. And it looks like that's exactly what's happening here as well. So it's going to be Panini for the next couple of years. And then it's going to go back to Topps. Now, here's my question.
Yeah.
Knowing that there is a very, I thought for sure there'd be a huge demand for WWE Prism. Same
here.
Because Prism's a huge product, but knowing that it's only going to have a limited shelf life. It's not a situation like where
2-3 years tops.
But it's not a situation where you're going to have an entire back catalog of 12 13 years of Prism products. To go back on like you have with football and basketball. Is it going to affect the value?
Yeah, no, it's going to be very interesting to see. I would imagine it would. Pre-sales seem to be pretty strong based on, or at least demand seems pretty strong based on what I've seen from pre-orders. WWE's fan base is getting larger and larger. Obviously, the collectibles industry in that market is actually thriving like crazy right now. So you might have, with collectors having that only having a couple years and knowing that it only has a couple of years, maybe it does give it more demand.
Typically you go back and like first year Prism has a huge collectible base to it because it's the first year of a product. And that's part of the reason I went heavy on 1920 Mosaic basketball. First year Mosaic was a standalone product, hoping that, down in the future that, somewhere in the future that people will look back on and be like, oh yeah, it's first year Mosaic, just like first year Prism. Now, and that I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people went heavy on the Prism WNBA. Back in 2020 when that came out. I mean, aside from, Sabrina Ionescu and, her stuff, which was selling like crazy at the time. But is WWE Prism, first year release going to have that same, and I'm not talking about the, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not talking about like the values being exactly the same, but, is it going to have that same bump compared to future years, knowing that now, we only have a 2 to 3 year product run.
Yeah, the timer's already running.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then how will it compare? Here's my big comparison. How is Prism WWE going to compare to UFC Prism?
Yep.
I think the UFC stuff is probably going to wind up outselling WWE. So. But, is it going to have the same kind of hype around it?
I think the hype part you're right around. I think the hype part it could, but it's not going to outsell UFC. I'll tell you that right now after dealing with a lot of UFC collectors this weekend and talking with a lot of people. UFC is actually one of my biggest prizes in the next year, I think, is the growth you're going to see in UFC cards and the collecting. It's getting very, very, very big right now, and that was very apparent this weekend.
I kind of feel like this whole situation. I kind of feel like this whole situation was like Panini's sitting there with like a big helium-filled balloon, and Fanatics, along with Vince McMahon, just came by with a giant needle and just popped it.
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, that was a big grab for Panini. They lost all of their other licenses, and then they were able to snag this one up, and you're like, oh, shit, okay, cool.
And then to make the announcement like 3 days before WrestleMania.
Yeah, yes. I mean, that was, trust me, that was a critically timed announcement. Nothing WWE does is off the cuff when it comes to press.
This is I would say this is exactly like Panini is Chris Rock.
Yeah.
And Fanatics and Vince McMahon, the situation is Will Smith. It's like, hey, we got this huge thing going on, and I'm I got millions of people watching, and dude comes up and just smacks you.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what the situation is.
Yeah. No.
Really sorry, I just need an excuse to bring that up again.
Yeah, everybody does. Yeah. Everybody does.
Or like if be like Chris Rock being up there in one of the like Johnny Knoxville or something like that, just coming up and kicking him in the nuts. And
speaking of Johnny Knoxville, he'll be at WrestleMania.
Will he really?
Yeah, he's fighting at WrestleMania.
Oh, I had no idea. I honestly had no idea about that.
That was slick. Yeah.
I was like, okay, who would be somebody that would actually go up there and, kick the dude in the nuts? And, that was the first, I really wanted to say Steve-O, but,
speaking of them really quick, one other thing from the Mint, before we wrap up, everything today, the next Zero Cool drop was announced, and the next Zero Cool drop is going to be Jackass.
Interesting.
Jackass theme. So
I actually saw Steve-O's bus on the Butler University campus in Indianapolis last weekend.
Nice.
Didn't see him. I have no idea what they were doing there. I didn't even bother to look it up. Frankly, nobody really cared. But
you're getting some Jackass cards. Yeah, you're getting some Jackass cards. Speaking on that, just before we wrap up, a couple of new things there at the Mint that I saw. I got to see the first look, which we've got a video up on the socials of the Tops. What is it? The NIL group that they've got. I keep forgetting the Elite or whatever group. Saw those cards in person for the first time.
How'd they look?
Oh my God, they're incredible. They look so nice.
Because that's the Topps Chrome release that's coming out.
Overtime Elite, yes.
Yep.
Overtime Elite, that's it. Yep. That one they had the cards out at, and then they showed you the next Zero Cool release, which was Jackass. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, because I thought that was an interesting one. The cards look incredible and they look cool.
Now, are the cards you saw, are they actual pictures of the guys from Jackass, or are they like hand drawn, like, art like Gary Vee did with his release?
No, they're actual photos and things like that. They're actual photos and everything. Yeah, not drawings or they might include drawings too. I don't know. But what they showed you were the boxes, which the boxes looked amazing. And then a couple of the cards. So I do have a video up on all of our socials with those, along with the Overtime Elite Chrome. But yeah, Jackass, it looks like, will be Zero Cool's next drop. So
I mean, honestly, I feel like, you said the boxes look cool, but I feel like if you're going to be spending a couple grand on a box, it better be like, at the very least, like the National Treasures cigar box type box, or like the Fanatics briefcase or something like that.
And that's what you're getting. That's what it looks like. It's pretty slick. Just imagine Flawless and kind of Jackass it up a little bit. And you got the right idea. It looks cool.
So you open the box, instead of a gem card being in there, like Wee Man's going to come out and kick you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Because, he could probably fit in one of those.
He probably could. Oh man. So that'll be the next one up on Zero Cool.
Now you got me all excited about Zero Cool Jackass, because like instead of a 1-of-1 Wee Man in the box, you can actually get Wee Man in the box.
I know.
Like he's actually in there. Like he'll be banging on the one touch, wanting to get out. And it's up to you whether or not you want to break the seal and let Wee Man out of the one touch.
I was gonna say, the one box that shakes and won't stop shaking, you know what's in it.
Hopefully it's the one box with holes drilled in it.
Right. Yeah, at least one or two.
Otherwise you're gonna have a Wee Man corpse in your box.
Yeah, so we'll see how that drop goes. But I thought it was interesting. But anyway, guys, that is gonna do it for this week's episode of Let Me Get That Potograph. I can't think of a better way to end than Wee Man jumping out and punching someone in the nuts. So we're gonna wrap up there for today, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to hell for that one.
That's okay. A lot of people are probably coming here. But yes, thank you guys so much to our awesome sponsors, Vanity Slabs, Vintage Breaks, Card Crusade, and of course the awesome guys over at Card Ladder for sponsoring the show. Could not do the show without you guys. And we'll have new episodes of Letter Rip, everything else coming up this week. A lot of footage from the Mint that I'll be putting together as well, and we'll be putting up on socials. If you haven't checked some of the posts from walking the floor at the Mint, I highly recommend it, as we did have some really cool impromptu interviews and some really cool exclusive content that has not been released to the public yet. So definitely go check it out, and we'll have a lot more coming to you next week. But Scott, it's great to be back in the saddle, my man.
Yeah, it's good to have everybody back where they should be.
Right? Absolutely. Well, guys, that's gonna do it for this episode. But you know the deal. Keep ripping those packs, pulling those hits. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.